There's always been a long-standing debate on who is stronger, Shanks or Mihawk. But as we enter the final saga, this debate will soon become irrelevant because Zoro is coming for the throne. And although he usually doesn't do well with directions, the path to becoming the strongest swordsman is one that Zoro will definitely succeed in following. So today, we're going to be discussing Zoro's path to becoming the strongest swordsman. Will he end up fighting or training with Shanks? How much will Shiryu challenge him as a rival? And how will the grand finale of his rematch with Mihawk play out? That's what we're going to be discussing today, but first, make sure you subscribe and join the King Pirates crew so you don't miss any future videos. With that being said though, let's get to our first topic, which is Shanks potentially training Zoro. This is something I talked about in my most recent video, because I really feel like there's a strong possibility that Shanks is in the next major arc. Maybe not exactly the next arc we're going to, because that might be a shorter one like Sphinx Island, but the next major arc where a character gets a lot of focus, I have a feeling that might be Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates, because at this point we've been building up towards him for so long. Film Red just released, so we got a lot of material on the Red Hair Pirates, but it's about damn time we see them in the actual source material. And don't get me wrong, I have no doubt that Shanks is gonna play big roles later in the story, maybe getting involved with Blackbeard and the world government. But I feel like having his initial introduction to the Straw Hat crew happen in a chill environment in a low-key arc could work really well. Because after waiting for this reunion for so long, we really need some downtime to see this reunion happen and to see the interactions between both crews. And it won't just be the friendly banter and interactions between these two crews. I also think they need to duke it out, which is the perfect opportunity for Zoro to grow. Because when the Red Hair Pirates finally meets the Straw Hats, they absolutely need to fight. It was part of the promise that Luffy made to Shanks. Not only was Luffy gonna become a great pirate and the Pirate King and surpass Shanks himself, but he also said he was gonna build a crew that was better than Shanks. So for him to really prove that, there has to be a test of the Straw Hats confronting the Red Hair Pirates. And while obviously this fight is not gonna be like a fight to the death, both sides are definitely still gonna try their best as a sign of respect. It's part of the reason why I think Shanks is going after the One Piece now. It's not part of some grand evil plan where he's been using Luffy this whole time. Instead, it's him treating Luffy as an equal and giving him proper respect and acting as a real rival. And the perfect example of this is what we saw during the Oden flashback with the Whitebeard Pirates and the Roger Pirates. And that's the type of scenario I think we need with the Straw Hats and the Red Hair Pirates, and I think it could come in the next major arc. Maybe that arc turns out to be Elbaf, where Loki is the first new villain that we meet in a while, and we get a bunch of lore, but we still have that downtime to see the interactions between the Straw Hats and Red Hair Pirates. And what makes this scenario most exciting for me is that this could be the perfect opportunity for the Straw Hats to train and grow. And this is really not that new of an idea. For a long time now, a lot of people have talked about this idea of the Straw Hats training after Wano and maybe even getting a time skip. Obviously, with the timeline of the story right now, a time skip doesn't really make sense, and the Straw Hats don't really need one, because while they definitely still have some growing to do, in Wano they proved their strength. The Monster Trio got power-ups across the board and defeated their opponents, the adults also took care of business, and even the weak trio have gotten some power-ups and shown signs of growth. So at this point, there's really no need for a time skip, but I do think that the Straw Hats across the board have some figuring out to do in terms of their powers. And who better to learn from than another Yonko crew that's been in the game that's also got a similar setup of a small crew. On top of that, this is a crew where at least the officers have no devil fruit, so maybe finally a lot of the Straw Hats can learn hockey. And on top of that, there's also just perfect pairings of training partners like Yasop and Usopp and Shanks and Zoro. Now obviously, given his connection to Luffy, Shanks will probably teach Luffy as well, but I really think the potential connection of Zoro and Shanks should not be overlooked, because at the end of the day, Shanks is also a swordsman and someone that Zoro also has to surpass. And listen, when it comes to Shanks versus Mihawk, I don't really have a horse in this race. I think they're relatively equal. But I will say, there is this one scene that I keep imagining where Zoro finally meets Shanks and tells him about his goal of becoming the strongest swordsman, and Shanks responds with, "Oh, okay, you're trying to surpass me as well." That scene will take me into hype mode so fast, and it would be so epic. So yeah, I think Zoro training / sparring with Shanks is a really good idea, and it could be the perfect step for him to get to the next level. In the aftermath of Wano, he's starting to understand Conqueror's Haki and how to use the advanced version of it. It definitely still is a new power that he doesn't fully have a grasp on. Well, guess what? It definitely is not a new thing for Shanks, so through either training or sparring, he could really give that knowledge to Zoro. At the same time, I don't really expect this training to like take Zoro to his final level or bloom his haki. It's more so him just taking in the knowledge and setting his foundation, because in order for him to really grow and for his haki to bloom, he needs like a serious challenge and a real fight. And while it's entirely possible that he does get that with Shanks, with two big bigger fights coming for him in the future that we're going to talk about next, I don't think it's as likely to happen. Instead, this is really an opportunity for him to round out his skills. Maybe he learns some observation haki as well. And even besides anything power related, Shanks could know stuff about Ryuma and Ushimaru from the time he spent with Odin. And honestly, that's what makes Shanks great. There's just so many different things he could add to the story as far as interactions and lore. And I believe Zoro will be one of the people to benefit from that one way or another. With that said though, let's move on to one of Zoro's future matchups, which is Shiryu of the Rain. And this is a fight that definitely has to happen. Even if we don't end up getting 1v1s for the Straw Hats across the board, which if we don't get that, Oda, I will never forgive you. But Shiryu versus Zoro is a matchup I'm almost 100% confident will happen. From the moment Shiryu was introduced as a swordsman to when he joined the Blackbeard Pirates, pretty much cementing a confrontation with the Straw Hats later on, it's been very clear that Oda is setting him up to be a future Zoro opponent. And if it wasn't clear enough already, in the recent cover spread of All the Right Hands, Shiryu was included in that as well to really hammer it home. So I fully expect this matchup to happen. He's going to be one of the last opponents for Zoro. The real question though is how much of a challenge is he going to be? And that's honestly really hard to judge because he's been hyped up as this bloodthirsty dude that's no doubt strong. The only thing is we really haven't seen anything from him, so there's no proof of his skills. And not only that, but there hasn't even really been any strong portrayal of him being an absolute monster. Even the recent devil fruit that he got was previously used by Absalom, who only used it for perverted reasons. So overall, there really hasn't been anything exciting built up about Shiryu, so he's a bit of a mystery, which is why I think the perception of how strong he is a bit all over the place. When it comes to power scaling discussions, a lot of people have him below other Yonko commanders like King and Katakuri, which given what we've seen from Shiryu makes sense, but narratively doesn't. Like if he's gonna be an opponent for Zoro in the future and he's weaker than King, then it's just a drop off. On the other hand, I've seen people gas him up so much thinking that he's gonna kill Mihawk and become the strongest swordsman, which not gonna lie, I've seen this theory in the past and I kind of believed in it because Mihawk is also another mystery, but when you really think about it, that's just very unlikely to happen. It would make Mihawk probably the biggest fraud in the story. Like Mihawk has been built up since Baradier, and for him to just get taken out by Shiryu, who's gotten no development in the story, would just be a travesty. So I don't think that scenario is gonna happen. Eventually Mihawk will have his moment proving his strength and why he's the GOAT, and I think Shiryu will also have a similar moment to really prove his strength and power, because that is something we absolutely need to see. We've seen his evil and sadistic side and how that's gonna pair really well in a Zoro fight, but we really need this moment where he showcases his strength so we can recognize the danger he poses and the stakes and tension of that fight. Obviously, this is probably gonna go down in the Blackbeard focus arc where all the other Blackbeard pirates are gonna showcase their strength. I think one good way for Shiryu to potentially show his strength is maybe some Marines, like he just takes out a bunch of Vice Admirals. It could be Cypher Pole agents as well, or maybe even other pirates like Law and Kid. One way or another, Shiryu needs a moment to really set up this fight against Zoro, which I think is gonna be the fight to take Zoro to his final level. Now that we're in the final saga, I think this fight against Shiryu is probably the last fight Zoro has before he finally fights Mihawk, which means that this is the fight where he really needs to be challenged so he can bloom his haki to the max and reach his final level. I think it's likely that this is also the fight where Zoro gets his black blades, because that way when he finally enters that fight against Mihawk, it's kinda on even level and Zoro can just come out on top proving he's stronger. So that means as far as this fight goes, it has to be an absolute bloodbath, which honestly fits both characters so well. And personally, I want this to be a fight where Zoro's really pushed to the brink, like a Mr. 1 level of a fight, where he is just pushed to the brink and at the very end he surpasses himself and reaches another level, comes out with black blades and defeats Shiryu. That's the level of challenge I want Shiryu to be. There's obviously going to be little interesting things in there as well, like his invisibility, challenging Zoro's observation haki. I also think it's very likely that his blade Ryu is probably a supreme grade blade, so that could also be a reason Zoro needs to push himself to create a black blade so he's on equal playing field. And overall, I think that's the role Shiryu is going to play. We don't know much about him, but I do think he's going to be the challenge to bring Zoro to Mihawk level, which gets us to Zoro's final battle against Dracula Mihawk, or at least the final major battle. If we do end up getting the final war after this battle, most likely Zoro fights Green Bull and probably the Gorosei with a sword, but still the real final battle for Zoro accomplishing his dream is Mihawk, this battle that's been set up since Baradier. And as far as this fight goes, I think the setup and the scene for it is going to be really important because the situation is kind of weird. Because the two of them not only know each other, but Mihawk literally taught Zoro for 2 years. So if you don't set the stage and tone correctly, the tension and the stakes behind this battle is just not going to feel the same. Because this fight has to be different from like a Straw Hats versus Red Hair Pirates fight. In that fight, even though both sides are probably going all out, they still are having like a friendly match. In a Zoro versus Mihawk battle, although they're not like fighting to the death, it should still be both sides going for like deadly blows and having this prideful battle for the throne. Because this is the grand finale of Zoro's dream. All the progress and build-up he's had the entire story, this is what it was all for. And perhaps in this battle he ends up growing one final time, but I would really like it if honestly they go into it pretty equal and Zoro just wins out as the better swordsman. Now as far as the scenario that sets this up, I do think there will be real stakes, especially given that Mihawk is working with Crocodile, who is a real villain. And overall, as I've said in previous videos, the Cross Guild is going to be a serious threat for the One Piece. On top of that, another thing we need out of this fight is build up for Mihawk's strength, because honestly Mihawk kind of desperately needs it. We really have not seen a glimpse of his power yet. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people think Shanks is stronger, because he's gotten way more portrayal in the story. So before this Zoro versus Mihawk fight happens, we need more build up for Mihawk. Not only just a moment of strength, but also maybe his story. Of course, we don't need this like huge sad backstory, but I do want to know what really drives Mihawk to be the GOAT. Because we know Zoro's reasoning, so we need this counter reasoning for Mihawk, so we're really invested in both guys. And then as far as Mihawk's big moment of greatness, I think one great way to do it is maybe just have him stop Luffy. Because at that point, Luffy's gonna be pretty much endgame Luffy, who might be the strongest person of all time. So if you show Mihawk as capable of standing up to Luffy and stopping him, we get to finally actually see that Mihawk is that guy and he's that level, and that will perfectly set up Zoro to take that fight over and also reach and surpass that level. And by the end of that battle, Zoro will end up on the throne as the world's strongest swordsman with a bounty of likely 3.6 billion. But that's gonna do it for this video. If you made it this far, you probably had a good time, so please drop a like for the YouTube algorithm. And let's play a game rock, paper, scissors. If you lose, you have to like, subscribe, and watch the next video. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot!